My name is David, and I am an ordinary employee of a small company. For a long time, I didn't believe the rumors going around the office that our boss, Amanda Westbrook, a smart, focused, and incredibly charismatic woman, was allegedly having affairs with younger men. It seemed too far-fetched until I saw it for myself. I was 24 years old at the time, and Amanda was 49. Although she looked much younger, she couldn't have been more than 30 years old. She had dark brown hair cascading down to her shoulders and piercing blue eyes. Her height was about 170 centimeters, and her figure was slim and trim. Amanda held herself so confidently that it was impossible not to notice her. She was, without a doubt, stunning. Her reputation as a leader was also well-known. People admired her business acumen and the way she ran the company. There were rumors that her rise to the top was partly influenced by her beauty and connections, including a close relationship with a former mayor known for his love of beautiful women. Amanda's husband had moved to another city years ago, and they seemed to be living separately, at least as far as I could tell. I found Amanda charming, and she knew it. Sometimes she teased me, subtly catching my eye across the room, winking slyly, or sometimes letting her eyes linger on me too long. But I never thought about making a move first. First of all, she was my boss. Second, I had only recently gotten married. And third, she was much older than me. Nevertheless, I had always been attracted to mature, independent women, and Amanda fit that description perfectly. One afternoon, Amanda called me into her office and said, "David, tomorrow you're coming with me on a business trip." Her tone left no room for questions, but I asked anyway, "Where are we going?" She looked up from her desk, her lips curled in a smile. "We're going to a client in Ridgefield. Make sure you're ready for this trip." The next day, we drove to a neighboring town. Honestly, the whole day passed without incident. Amanda attended meetings, did paperwork, and made phone calls, while I mostly stood around carrying her things and feeling out of place. I couldn't understand why she had brought me along. But it all became clear in the evening when it was time to check into the hotel. I assumed Amanda would book us separate rooms, but instead, she got a single room with 2 beds. I was a little taken aback, but didn't say anything after all. She was the boss, and I wasn't going to argue with her decision. After checking in, Amanda asked me to stay in the room while she went out for a bit. She left without explaining where she was going or when she would be back. An hour later, she called me on my cell phone. "David, prepare a small dinner for us in the room. I'll be back soon." I complied with her request and set the small table in our room with plates and glasses. My curiosity was piqued. Who had she gone to see? Maybe she was seeing someone else. About an hour later, Amanda returned. I heard her call my name from the hallway and quickly went out to greet her. She was alone. "Where's your friend?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Amanda smiled, a playful glint appearing in her eyes. "There is no friend, David. I just wanted to spend a nice evening with you," she said as she entered the room. "You understand, don't you?" "I think so," I reply, my heart beginning to pound in my chest. Amanda looked at me for a minute. Her eyes seemed to be sizing me up. Then she said softly, but commandingly, "Help me take off my boots." I knelt down in front of her and carefully unzipped the zipper on her knee-length leather boots. Her legs, covered in sheer black stockings, were beautiful. I couldn't help but hold her leg in my hands for a moment, feeling the warmth of her skin under the thin fabric. Amanda didn't pull away, only looked at me with a smirk. "Do you like them?" she asked. I swallowed and nodded. "Very much." She gave me a knowing smile and then said, "I'm going to go take a shower." She disappeared into the bathroom, leaving me alone and my thoughts scattered. When she came out, she was wearing a short silk robe that encased her in all the right places. I could barely take my eyes off her, and she knew it. She walked over to the table, glancing at the dinner I'd prepared. "Come on," she said, inviting me to join her. We ate slowly, drinking down the bottle of red wine Amanda had brought. The conversation turned to personal topics, and Amanda surprised me with her candor. "Are you happy with your wife?" she asked, her tone curious. "Yes, I'd say I am," I reply. "We're still figuring things out. We've only been married a few months." Amanda nodded, looking thoughtful. "I used to be happy with my husband too, but things have changed. Now I'm just lonely." She sighed, her eyes meeting mine. "Do you find me attractive, David?" I hesitated, not knowing how to answer. "Yes," I finally said. "I think you're very beautiful." Amanda smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Thank you. It's nice to hear that from a young and honest man." She paused, then added, "Would you like to dance?" I blinked, stunned by the sudden change of subject. "Sure." I stood up and found some music on my phone, something slow and soft. Amanda stepped closer to me, her body almost touching mine. I put my hands on her waist, and she wrapped her arms around my neck. We swayed to the beat of the music. The room was quiet, except for the soft melody. Her body was warm against mine, and her scent was intoxicating. After a few moments, Amanda raised her eyes to mine and looked at me. "You know," she said in a voice barely above a whisper, "you could be more than an employee to me." "If you wanted to." My heart raced, thoughts swirling in my head. I knew what she was offering, and some part of me wanted to say yes. I'd always been drawn to her strength, the confidence she radiated. Without thinking, I leaned in and kissed her. Her lips were soft and warm, and she responded immediately, wrapping her arms tightly around my neck. "Be brave," she whispered against my lips, and I realized there was no turning back. I picked her up in my arms, her legs wrapped around my waist, and I carried her to the bed. She pulled me with her, and her hands began undoing the buttons on my shirt. The rest of the night passed like a blur, a mixture of passion, play, and a sense of danger that made everything around me feel more alive. Amanda was demanding, her confidence extending to every aspect of her life, including the bedroom. She knew exactly what she wanted, and I was more than willing to give it to her. We got very little sleep that night, and when morning came, I felt both exhausted and happy. Amanda looked content, a satisfied smile playing on her lips as she looked at me. "I think we'll extend our stay a few more days," she said, and it was clear from her tone that it wasn't a suggestion. And so we stayed. For another 3 days, I hardly slept at all. Amanda didn't let me get bored. During the day, we attended meetings and took care of business, and at night, it was just the two of us, and she made sure that every moment counted. With each passing day, I became more and more fascinated with Amanda. During the meetings, I watched her in action, her confidence, her commanding presence. She knew how to speak, how to engage people, how to get her way. It was mesmerizing. I began to admire her, not only because of her beauty, but also because of her intelligence and strength. She was a woman who had made her way to the top, built herself against all odds, and I came to have a deep respect for her for that. In the evenings, Amanda and I would often sit on the small balcony of our hotel room, drink a bottle of wine, and talk. She would tell me about her life, her marriage, her career, her hardships. She talked about the sacrifices she had to make to succeed, the loneliness that came with success. There was a vulnerability in her words that I hadn't noticed before, and it made her seem more human, more real. It wasn't just about the physical connection anymore. There was an emotional depth between us. One evening, as we sat on the balcony, Amanda was looking out at the city lights, her expression detached. "You know, David," she said quietly, "I never thought I'd end up here successful, but alone. It's funny how life works out sometimes." I didn't know what to say, so I just walked over and took her hand. She looked up at me, her eyes softening. "Thank you," she said, "for being here, for listening." I squeezed her hand gently. "You're not alone, Amanda. Not now." She smiled, a sincere smile reaching her eyes. "No, I guess not." The next day, Amanda decided to take a break from meetings, and we spent the day exploring the city. We visited a local park, walked along the river, and even had lunch at a small cafe. It was almost normal, like we were just two people enjoying each other's company. There was a lightness in Amanda that day, a carefree energy that I hadn't noticed before. She laughed more. Her eyes shone with happiness, and I realized that I had fallen in love with her even more. That night, back at the hotel, Amanda was different. There was a softness, a tenderness that wasn't there before. As we lay in bed, she ran her fingers over my chest, her eyes studying me. "You're a good man, David," she said softly. "I hope you know that." I looked at her, my heart racing with emotion. "And you're an amazing woman, Amanda." "I mean it." She leaned in and kissed me, slow and deep, and in that moment I realized that what we had was more than just a fling. It was something real, something meaningful. When we got home, I felt like I had lived a whole life in just a few days. Amanda and I didn't talk about what had happened between us. In the office, she was as professional as ever and didn't give the appearance that anything had changed. But when our gazes met, there was a spark, some shared secret that only we knew. And deep down, I knew things would never be the same again. A week after we returned, Amanda called me into her office. She was sitting at her desk, her expression unreadable. "David," she said in a formal tone, "I wanted to thank you for accompanying me on the trip. You've been a great help to me." I nodded, trying to keep a neutral expression on my face. "It was my pleasure, Amanda." She paused, her eyes meeting mine. There was something unspoken in her gaze, something only I could understand. "I'm glad to have you on my team, David. You're an asset to this company." "Thank you," I said, my voice flat. "It means a lot." As I turned to leave, Amanda's voice stopped me. "David?" I turned to her, and for a brief moment, the formal mask she wore slid away, and I saw the woman I'd spent those nights with, a vulnerable, lonely woman who'd let me into her life. "Take care of yourself," she said softly. I smiled. "You too, Amanda." And with those words, I walked out of her office, knowing that no matter what happened next, I would always carry the memory of those days with me. They changed me, made me see things differently. And while I didn't know what the future held, I knew I would always be grateful for the time I spent with Amanda Westbrook, a woman who showed me a different side of life, a side filled with passion, vulnerability, and a connection that defies words.